Alright, last couple London Film Festival movies, let's go. Next I saw New Order, or Nuevo Orden, and I liked it. This is a morbid and uncomfortable look at classism and corruption that does not remotely hold back at all. In terms of an unforgiving tone and making the audience uncomfortable, it does a phenomenal job. The performances are all amazing and everyone fits their character perfectly. All of the characters are very well fleshed out, and whilst many of them are completely unlikable and irredeemable, that's the point of it. Then you have the characters in this movie that we're supposed to like and they're easy to care about, and oh god, do you ever feel bad for them for the entire movie. The cinematography in this movie was great and the color palette worked wonders. The music was well utilized. I love the costume work in this movie. The production design worked wonders for the film as well. It's really well paced. All in all, this movie has a very good script, although I would be lying if I said this movie's ending worked whatsoever. I mean, yeah, it's unforgiving and bleak, so it fits tonally, but it doesn't really make sense at all. I get what they were going for, but they really didn't develop it anywhere near enough for it to have the proper impact it was going for. And because the film feels somewhat grounded up until this point, it just feels out of left field and kind of silly. I also did not enjoy the editing in this movie. There's a lot of scene, cut to black. Scene in this movie. The first time this happens in the movie, it's going from something horrible happening to people who don't have privilege to a party filled with rich people who don't have to worry about it at the time. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty clever, nice play of tone. I still feel like a jump cut would have worked better there. In fact, it probably would have serviced the tone that you were going for much better, but still I see what you're going for, good job. But then they use that as a scene transition multiple times for the rest of the movie for no apparent reason whatsoever. So you can imagine that I was very sick of it by the end of the movie since they just kept on doing it. Again, the first time they do it, you understand why and it has a lot of purpose, but at the same time, every other time they do it, it just feels like a gimmick. There were a couple of scenes in the movie that I would call redundant, but at the same time, bar that and everything else I've already mentioned, I did really like this movie. With this film, I could definitely see a lot of people really hating it because of some of the things that happen in it and how unforgiving it is. And that's totally fine, this movie is not going to be for everyone. But if you're cool with movies that are cold and really don't hold back, then this one may be the one for you. Check it out as soon as it gets a wide release because I think it's absolutely worth the hype it's been getting and I'd highly recommend it. And I'm giving New Order an 8 out of 10. It's closer to a 7 than a 9, but I'm giving it an 8. And the last movie I saw was Posessor, and it was a disappointment. There are a lot of ways in which this movie works really well. It's incredibly well shot, the editing choices work well, the music was well utilized, I enjoyed the costume work and production design in the movie, the acting was great across the board, and Jennifer Jason Leigh did a particularly fantastic job. The effects were amazing, and I really enjoyed the usage of practical for a lot of the movie. There's a lot of interesting ideas, and for the first 10 to 15 minutes, I was really enjoying this movie. Unfortunately, this movie is far more effective at showing ambition than actual execution of any of its ideas. The characters are dull, and I didn't really give a shit about a single one of them. This movie's plot is genuinely boring, and it was not helped by how atrocious the pacing is. There are plenty of scenes in this movie which feel like they don't fit at all and were only really shoved in to pad the runtime out. Despite the interesting ideas this movie has, it struggles to properly utilize them. A lot of the visual stuff in this movie was really cool, but there's also some visual stuff in the movie that's incredibly lame. On the whole, this movie was far worse than the sum of its parts. This movie was not as bad as Relic, but this was definitely the most boring movie I saw at the festival. Quite frankly, it was honestly insufferable for a lot of the runtime, and the presentation basically carried the entire thing. This movie really deserved a better script, because there is a great film in here somewhere, but the end result is just annoying. All in all, I really wouldn't recommend this movie, and it was a major letdown considering how great it could have been. And I'm giving Posessor a 4 out of 10. Alright, that's everything I saw at London Film Festival this year. And with that, that's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe. I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.
Come one, come all, it's truly a ball as we dance the songs of sirens. All those opposers leave gasoline trails, and tonight is the night that we light them.